talking about free college tuition. So my proposition is that making public colleges and universities tuition free will give financially unstable students the chance to reach higher education without the burden of high tuitions. So we're all here. We obviously want to go to college, but it's discouraging for many of us to pay the price of college. And that leads many students into other routes and whatnot, or to not continue education. So one of my claims is that high college tuition fees can make students turn to alternative routes, such as going to the military, just getting into the workforce and not really gaining anything professional or educational and going into a profession. Also, they have to take out loans, and then later on they get in debt. My second claim is that countries that already offer free tuition have successful rates of enrollment and graduation rates. And lastly is that free tuition will lead an educated workforce with more innovations in the country. So first of all, high college tuition fees can make students turn into alternative routes. So joining the military is very, it's respectable and honorable, but young people find this route more desirable just for the fact that they can't afford college. I graduated high school not that long ago, and many of my friends chose to go to the Army or the Air Force and whatnot just because they can't afford college, and that's a burden in itself because you have to leave your family and whatnot. And nobody should have to do that and go through the extensive and harsh conditions that comes with all of that training and stuff. Also, people don't continue in education and go into the workforce, and although that is good, we need people to be working regular jobs. It's better if we have more people getting an education and gaining professions instead of low-skilled jobs that we all start out at. And then from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, it shows that 67,000, around 68,000% of high school grad students who don't reach a higher education are working minimum wage jobs. And then for people who have a bachelor's degree or higher, it's 14,236 people. And that's a 53,568 difference. I didn't say the number before, it was 67,804. And that's a big difference, that people can be working other jobs such as doctors, lawyers, business management and whatnot. Also, an article by Los Angeles Times, it shows that people with bachelor's degree make 84% more over a lifetime than high school graduates. And then the third thing is that people who take an alternative route, who do gain an education, they have to take out loans and therefore are in debt. 7 in 10 seniors who graduated from public colleges in 2014 had student debt with an average of $28,950 per borrower, and that's kind of a lot. Like, nobody wants to get out of school and have to, pay that. And then my second claim is that countries that already offer free tuition have successful rates of enrollment, such as Norway, Finland, Sweden, Germany, France, and whatnot. So France has an 80% rate of graduation of graduates. Finland has 76%, Germany has 77%, and all of these countries are beating the United States just by their graduation rates. And they all offer free tuition, which can be an incentive for students to continue their higher education and make them graduate more. And as for the U.S., as of 2008, the graduation percentage from undergraduate students was 60%. Also, Finland students have the benefits of both rigor and flexibility at no cost in school, and Finland has one of the best educated workforces. All the countries that provide tuition-free college have high enrollments and high graduation rates. Some of the top institutions like University of Munich in Germany have free tuition, and the university stays rigorous with the high enrollment rate. Lastly, free tuition will lead to an educated workforce with more innovators in the country. So the more people have more professions, the more people can attend school and, learn other things other than you would in a minimum wage job. This will give the country a more educated workforce, and therefore we will make more innovations. The discipline in school can increase as well. Free tuition usually leads people to thinking that it'll be easier to attend college, but college will stay as rigorous as it is now, if not more. And then more people will be educated and will have professional jobs instead of jobs that require little to no skills. In conclusion, free tuition at public colleges and universities will benefit the country more and will lead students to reach a higher education without the burden of having to pay high tuitions. Thank you. This is my point.
Thank you. Well, in the introduction, it sounded like you had started your argument on that first point when actually it was just a preview, so it's a long preview. The phrasing of the proposition's a little bit convoluted, but we get the general idea. It sounds familiar since we heard a similar speech earlier in the evening. You did preview the supporting points ultimately, so that was fine. Well, those also sound like very familiar supporting points as well. They sound very parallel to what we heard in the other speech. The first point that you have talking about the alternatives, basically your only proof there seems to be your knowledge of the friends that you have who chose to go the military route or get a job. And I'm not exactly sure that that's, I'm not saying that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I'm not exactly sure that your experience is the one that we ought to be generalizing from. The reasons that people don't attend college or choose other routes could be pretty varied. The notion that it is primarily a financial issue, I think, needs to be documented a little bit more. There are lots of different options available to education and entrances into education. I'm trying to remember, there's some ridiculous statistic down at Fullerton where I teach, it's a community college down there. It's like 80% of people have a grant or a waiver so that they're not paying anything except for their books. They don't pay for the tuition kind of thing. So I think that there needs to be a little bit more explanation about what the financial considerations are. Are those in fact the barriers that are keeping people out? I think that there's just, it's a presupposition that needs more proof on it. I did think that you had good comparative data, like I was criticizing earlier in the other speech that we didn't have the comparative data. We got a little bit more comparative data from you about graduation rates. I assume that those are graduation from college. So in France, 80% are getting their advanced degree, and 77% in Germany, and apparently only 60% in the United States. So that seems to suggest that there is a substantial difference. Now you're attributing that difference to the tuition costs, and I think we need a little bit more information that shows that's the reason that people drop out or they don't pursue it, because they have financial considerations that they have to worry about, or they suddenly are concerned about debt issues. There wasn't any discussion of the debt issue in those other countries, so that would probably be a point of contention from the response speaker later on. When we're back to the notion that in the long run education is a good idea, I don't think anybody here doubts that it's a good idea. Is it a good idea for everybody? That's the issue that's going to be problematic. Your statistic on 67,000, and 14,000 had X kind of job. That was confusing. It was not clear to me exactly what the point was that you were trying to make there. And at one point it sounded like you were saying 67,000%, and I'm going, that's a pretty high percentage. And I know it's not really a percentage. And then 14,000, I knew, well, you're not really talking about a percentage, but it makes it sound like, well, 67,000 people get jobs as getting minimum wage, and 14,000 of them are getting jobs as doctors and lawyers. And I'm not sure that that's what the evidence says. It's unclear. Even though you're taking from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it sounds to me like a paraphrase instead of a direct quote. And this would be one of those places where a direct quote would be a lot clearer and explain what the argument means. The LA Times statistic about how much more people earn over their lifetime with a college degree, that I thought was pretty effective. And they also include the student debt issue. That was also pretty effective. So I think you've got some good statistical information in the presentation. I just think that sometimes it needs to be related a little bit more to the argument that you're presenting. You need to work on your exit line. It just felt similar to earlier. It seems like we just stopped. All right. Thank you.